Buenos días a todos. Vamos a comenzar y tengo el honor de presentar a Susanna Slivensky, que nos va a dar la charla. Ahora, Susanna Slivensky is the Deputy Director and Head of Programs of the European Centre for Modern Languages of the Council of Europe. And before she joined the ECML, the European Centre for Modern Languages, in 2005, she worked at universities in Germany, Austria, and Japan as a lecturer, associate professor, and as executive director of a university language and international study center at the University of Kassel in Germany. She has more than 2 decades of experience of language teaching. She has a doctoral degree in language education and a master's degree in German as a foreign language, Japanese studies, and organizational psychology. Thank you very much, Susanna, for being here with us. And without further ado, I give the floor to Susanna Slivensky.
Thank you very much indeed, Julia. Good morning. It's a huge pleasure to be here. It's a great honor. I'd like to say a big thank you to all ACLES and CERCLES representatives for inviting me to be with you this morning. Now, I'll speak today about the added value of the European Centre for Modern Languages in the context of language policy and internationalization. And I would like to invite you on a trip to Graz. Just to make sure that everybody knows where we are going, I've prepared a map for you. The starting point is Salamanca, obviously, and as you can see, the final destination is Graz in Austria, but we'll make a stopover in France, in Strasbourg. Some of you might know why. In Strasbourg, there's our mother organization, the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe is based in Strasbourg, and we'll make a short stop over there. Now, this map, or the flashes, the arrows, might be a little bit misleading. You might think that we are going to fly, and that's wrong. We are going to run. Warming up, I'll talk about needs, and then on the move, we'll think about European perspectives on language policy. Then we arrive at our first stop in Strasbourg, and I'll talk about Council of Europe's language policy. And we are going further from Strasbourg. It's another 750 kilometers to Graz, so please be prepared. But we'll have a strong finish arriving at the ECML in Graz, and the reward is some examples of inspiring practice in language education, which I hope is inspiring for you. I truly hope that you will take with you some ideas that you can use in your practice. Okay, let's warm up. I'll talk about needs and challenges at a global scale, and I've prepared some cartoons for you. Cartoons are always funny at the first glance, but they do have a second meaning, and the second meaning is can be a little bit disturbing, so be prepared. All right, there are a few challenges out there. Now, these cartoons mainly focus on the environmental, on the migration crisis, and we know there are many other challenges we are facing at the moment. Now, we need to address these issues, and we need to work on solutions. In this situation, what are our needs? And I've, just for illustration, identified 3 levels that I think are worth considering in this context. The political level, the educational level, and then the learner level. Now, from the point of view of political needs, maybe we can agree that we need a commitment to international cooperation, and we need to develop the capacity to address crises and challenges. At an educational level, we need an engagement with the interconnected and interdependent world. And at a learner level, we need to develop 21st century skills, transversal skills, whatever you call them, and we need language competences for democratic citizenship. Now, in all of that, I think internationalization plays a very important role. And with internationalization, language education comes into play. Now, language education, we know, is a vast field. Which area would we want to look at first in this global context? I've come across an interesting remark from a Portuguese expert, actually. He says, language policies are essential in internationalization of higher education. I think that's worth considering. But that was just for the warming up. Yes, one more comment. English is enough. That could be a policy, couldn't it? But it's probably not the policy that we're going to follow. And for the rest of the presentation, I will provide arguments, I hope, that stand against this policy, which is in the room, some not in this room, but in other rooms, I'm afraid. But let's go and hit the road. We are running towards Strasbourg. And on the way, you know, this is you have plenty of time to think things over. So some questions come into mind. What is language policy about? Why is language policy a European topic? And who can benefit from language policy? Or a question like, is language policy primarily about foreign languages? Interesting question. It would be nice to have now a discussion group and talk things over, but we are on the move. We are ambitious. We want to reach Strasbourg. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, we see a demonstrator on the roadside, and she's holding up a poster. What does it say? Languages are a fundamental aspect of people's lives and the democratic functioning of society. That's bizarre. Why would a young woman be concerned with languages? Her English seems to be fine. Isn't that all right? Isn't that sufficient? Strange, really strange. But we move on, and we are already there. We are in Strasbourg. We are arriving at the Council of Europe, Europe's biggest intergovernmental organization, bringing together 46 member states. And they all work together on the values of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. That's the overall framework of work of the Council of Europe. Now, we are a little late because a month ago there was a summit of the heads of states and governments, not in Strasbourg, it took place in Reykjavik in Iceland. And they have published a declaration entitled United Around Our Values. And I thought it might be interesting to look a little bit into this declaration. It says, we, the heads of state and government, are committed to invest in a democratic future. Obviously, that's what they are there for. Ensure that everyone is able to play their role in democratic processes. I'd like to highlight everyone and is able to. And then right away we come to education. We prioritize education about core democratic values such as pluralism, inclusion, non-discrimination, transparency, and accountability. Now, my question immediately was, has this got to do with language policy? Pluralism, inclusion, non-discrimination, transparency, accountability. Is this maybe an indicator for, let's say, didactic approaches we should take? Is it an indicator for learning objectives, for learning content in language classrooms? And then again, this woman comes into mind. She says, languages are at the heart and in minds of people. So if democracy is about people, then right away languages should be there, shouldn't they? Now, I would just like to give you a very brief overview of key aspects of the work of the Council of Europe in the area of language education, language policy. Right away it says language education policy, and the The emphasis is really on education. Language policy comes under the Department of Education. Now, it's language education for democratic societies. As I said, that's the overall working frame of the Council of Europe. We are supporting democratic societies in Europe. So therefore, the question, in which way does language education contribute to the development and to the strengthening of democratic societies, comes into play. Now, in the focus, there is the promotion of linguistic and cultural diversity. We look at quality in language education. What does that mean? It means, for example, that we develop reference tools for transparent, coherent, and comprehensive approaches. And the CFR and its companion volume is, I think, a fine example in this direction. Now, it's not a static concept that the Council of Europe is promoting ever since it was founded. Obviously, the focus is shifting over the years. In the 1960s, the work of the Council of Europe in the area of language education was very much focused on foreign language education. But over the past 20 years, a more holistic view on language education has been developed, and the work ever since is very much focusing on all languages, how to support all languages in education and for education, for educational careers in our 21st century. Now, actually more than a year ago, the Council of Europe's language policy developed a recommendation. A recommendation of the Council of Europe is really the highest level political document that's being published. And the recommendation is on the importance of plurilingual and intercultural education for democratic culture. Now, you may think this is a repetition, isn't that? I mean, we've been talking about plurilingualism since I don't know how many years. How many conferences have you seen on plurilingualism? Intercultural competencies, that's back in, and so on. Now, why would in 2022 we again see a high-level recommendation on that? The reality, I think, and we are all aware of that, on the ground, in classroom, it's still a very vague and fuzzy concept. So more needs to be done in order to really implement the basic ideas of plurilingual and intercultural education. And yesterday in Brian North's presentation, we've seen all the key principles and ideas how to put that in practice. But I thought it's always worth to summarize and put the key points again in the focus. Plurilingual intercultural education is about democracy, is about interconnecting very different areas. It could be about interconnecting the teaching and learning of different languages across subjects in and between different institutions. It's about diversity, and it's about putting the learner's repertoire in the focus. So it strengthens learners as autonomous, socially responsible language users. It encourages critical reflection on linguistic and cultural diversity, promotes language sensitivity across the curriculum, not just in the language classroom, but also in subject teaching. It supports the inclusion of disadvantaged learners. So altogether, I think it's important to note that it is essential to education for democratic culture, and it responds to political, educational, and learners' needs. And I remind you of the first overview of needs that I've put on my first slide. Now, this slide, I'm afraid, is useless. That's what I thought when I saw the slide yesterday from Brian North, because it's just a repetition. On the Council of Europe's Language Policy portal, of course, you find information about the CFR, the companion volume. He showed that there are a number of videos available, and there's an ongoing series of webinars. So for me, it's now to say this is not the only part or area of work of the Council of Europe in the area of language policy. You will find work on migrants, adult migrants, linguistic support for adult migrants with a very interesting toolkit. I don't know if you're working in this area. And you'll find a number of other resources, in particular to plurilingual and intercultural education, in addition to what has been done to the Council of Europe. So this in the area of the CFR. So if you want to go beyond the CFR, it's really a warm invitation to look at the language policy website at this website. All right. So I think now we are ready to move on. I don't know if you can see that. We've gained some weight. We had a lot of input in Strasbourg. And we are now looking at the question, how do we link policy and practice? And I just come back to the questions I asked at the beginning of this presentation. What is language policy about? Why is language policy a European topic? Who can benefit? And is it only about foreign languages? Now, if this were a classroom, this would be the moment for a test, wouldn't it? But, of course, I could only give you some ideas, and I invite you to further work on these topics. But this is the moment where we're looking at an additional question. What is the relationship between language policy and language practice? And this is what brings us to Graz. But before we arrive, I thought maybe it's worth considering in which way language policy is actually linked to practice, to learning and teaching in a classroom. That's the photo at the bottom line. And maybe you can see that the students do not look very motivated, do they? I couldn't find a different photo. I don't know why. I would like to highlight the photo in the middle, which is intended to represent the teacher education sector. So that would be the sector in between language policy and the classroom. And I think this is really a very, very important area of work if we want to work towards implementation of language policy. On the other hand, if you look at this, top-down order, that's not how it works in practice anyway. So maybe it's more like that. There's a lot of fuss around language policy, but then in the end, very little arrives in the classroom. Or is it maybe like that? Reality is really taking place in the classroom, and teachers sometimes refer to their own educational background, but most likely they have no link to language policy. So what can we do in a situation when we think really policy is an area worth bringing into the classroom, or principles, values of language policy are worth being used in the classroom? You go to Graz. You go to the ECML. Graz is a very nice little city. I mean, cannot compare it to Salamanca by no means, but we do have a city shaped by Italian Renaissance architects. We have a university founded in the 16th century, fully controlled by the Catholic Church at that time, but things are changing. And the red building is the building of the ECML, not the whole building, the first floor only. It's a small center. We are about 10 colleagues full-time. We have stagiaires, fellows and Praktikanten working with us all the time. And this is really a warm invitation. Whenever you come to Austria, don't miss Graz. Now, what do we actually do? What is the role of the ECML? Our role is to bring together all these elements: policy, research, practice, and teacher education, with a clear focus on practice and teacher education. So we are inviting experts, language experts, on a regular basis, and we are inviting representatives from all our member states to come to Graz and discuss, first of all, about their needs, what is it they are interested in, and then together we develop resources. A key question that I thought is really represents our way of working, a key question that is being addressed by many of our project groups. How can the classroom reflect the globalized, interconnected and interdependent world for which our students are preparing? We try to respond to this question. How in practice can we prepare our students with language policy in the back of our minds and with the aim of offering quality in language education? Now, how do we operate at an administrative, operational level? We offer 4-year programs, and the current program comes to the end this year. So in December, we are hosting a big conference where we are presenting the results of the current program. And the current program is entitled Inspiring Innovation in Language Education, Changing Contexts, Evolving Competencies. Now, the way we work is we offer projects, and as a result, we try and support the implementation of the materials developed by our project teams. So we have European expert collaboration. We are inviting our project teams to come to Graz to work together, and we are inviting experts and participants from our member states to pilot and review the project materials the project team has developed. As a result, we are publishing and making our resources available on the ECML website. And maybe an important aspect of our work is that this is not the end of our work when we have published project results. We have this format which is called training and consultancy. And this is where we are inviting both our expert teams and our member states to consider the use of the materials that have been proposed and developed by our expert teams. So on demand by member states, so a country can say, oh, we are really interested in this resource. Can you send us an expert team to come to our country and to do a training workshop with a specific target group? And most of our project teams agree, and they do that. And this is really, really very successful. A very successful format, I think, also for project teams who can then actually see how their materials work in practice and how it may need to be adapted in specific contexts. We have a dedicated site for our member states. And right away, so it starts with Albania, Andorra, Armenia, and you will see that there's a special section for Spain. It says, in the process of accession to the ECML partial agreement. So this is the moment of suspense. We are really, really very grateful to all our colleagues who are supporting this initiative. Elena Lopez Luego, big thank you. I don't know if you're there. Yes, thank you for all your support in the Ministry of Education. Together, I think we'll make it work. And that would be really the moment for Spain to rejoin again, because Spain was a member a number of years ago before it decided to leave. Now, hopefully deciding to come back. Because, first of all, just a reminder why the ECML is an attractive goal. I've identified 3 target groups. First of all, I think it's interesting for experts to be involved because we do provide a European expert platform, and I think it's really a unique opportunity to meet on a regular basis with experts from, in our case, 35 different countries. So it's about the co-creation of European language education, and it's about the impact on development. So we are very much looking at the practice of learning and teaching. It's interesting for participants because we're offering this networking platform. We offer a knowledge-building environment. An ECML workshop is really an opportunity to exchange practice, to talk about needs and about possible solutions. So we are identifying areas and examples of good practice. And it has, I think, practical implications for the own work of the participants. So we have a quite strong focus on evaluation. We are gathering reports from participants, and we get this feedback on a regular basis. Why is it interesting for countries to become a member? It's a European cooperation platform for quality education, which is on the agenda of every member state of the Council of Europe. It provides, the ECML provides support for national priorities, and we give visibility to innovative practice of national developments. So it's a European stage, so to speak, for national developments. Now for teachers, why would it be interesting to look at the ECML website, for example? We offer ideas for practice. We offer resources which can be adapted. That's an important aspect. Our resources are sometimes ready to go, but I think it's very useful to think which aspect fits your needs and how can it be adapted to your very concrete context. And it's support for innovation. So if you're looking for change, if you're looking for further developing your teaching practice, I think a lot of ideas can be found on our website. And I'll give you some examples in a few minutes. But before that, the information that I said that earlier, this is the moment to rejoin the ECML. We have an open call for project proposals for the next ECML program. The call is open until the end of August, and applicants are residents of member states. So this should give you a last boost for wanting to join the ECML. There's a dedicated website. Here are keywords illustrating the themes identified as priorities in our member states. So the themes we are working on over the next 4 years are not themes that, you know, the secretariat members think about in a closed room. We've had a big, large-scale survey addressed to our national representatives and to experts, and we've gathered their priorities. So these priorities here are really the result of a larger scale survey about priorities in our member states. And I wanted to give you examples of themes for proposals, because these are just keywords. So if, for example, we look at 21st century skills, there's the theme developing 21st century skills by addressing global challenges in the language classroom. It's quite broad, and obviously a project proposal would need to be more specific. If you want to work on formative assessment in the context of a project, this theme would be your place to go. Formative assessment, including peer and self-assessment for language learning, enhancing the range of assessment procedures, including digital forms of assessment, and we've talked about that yesterday. Artificial intelligence in language education, in language teaching and learning, and motivation, increasing motivation to learn languages in addition to English. Now this would be the moment where we could take a short break and to find out from your neighbor, is any of these themes interesting for you? Is it relevant in your context? Would that be something where you would think, oh, that would be actually interesting to put in a proposal? Should we take, let's say, only 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes. Please look at your neighbor, left or right, and ask him or her, is any of these themes, and this is just a selection, is any of these themes relevant in your context? Sorry to interrupt, but I see that it keeps the ball rolling, and that's good to see. But let's move on in our strong Finnish. Why apply for a project? Just to give you more, concrete ideas why it would be worth applying for a project. It says the ECML is creating an environment in which your project can flourish. Now, what does that actually mean? Let's start with money. And there's a disappointment. No, we don't hand out. And I see our team members laughing. No, we don't hand out money, but it comes with a positive. The ECML is covering all the project administration, and we are financing the events that we are organizing. So we would finance the cost of conferences, we would organize conferences, and that's not a task for the team. The Secretariat is there to support project teams by all means. And that means that teams are really free to focus on their projects. Now, we offer advice and support at all stages of the projects. We have program consultants, and they follow developments. They are there for the project teams at any stage, so you can have external advice and support. And also the Secretariat is there to assist in project developments and support for the presentation of the results. Now, we have access to expertise, as I said it before, in 35 member states and beyond. We have, for example, strong cooperation with Canada. So this is really opening the door to a very vast network which is available for you as a project coordinator, as a team member, and I think that's quite a unique opportunity. We offer support for technical and design developments to turn your ideas into an online resource, and I'll give you some examples in just a minute. And there is this possible afterlife of your project, which again I believe is really very important also with regard to the mission of the ECML. Our focus is on the implementation, on what is actually happening in practice, and our contribution to developments in this area. Okay, who can apply? I've said that before. Teachers of all languages, teacher educators, experts, researchers, working in an ECML member state. And Spain is currently in the process of rejoining, so at the moment the call is open for experts like you. Now, this is our final part of this presentation, our reward, hopefully. A glance at ECML resources, and I should say right away, all resources are open, freely available for everybody. So there are no restrictions. You can go right away to the ECML website and start looking at resources and use them. Now I've selected, this is when you go to the website, you will come across right away the thematic portals, how we call them. At the moment, it's 9 portals: teacher and learner competences, sign languages, plurilingual and intercultural education, and so on. Now, this is a way of structuring our project results, our resources. By no means this should imply that there is no overlap. Of course, there's overlap, and of course, we want to interconnect themes and resources as well, but it's a way of presenting and offering access to certain topics. Now, I thought it might be interesting at the university level to maybe go to the area of content and language integrated learning. And I very briefly want to present this resource to you, Developing Language Awareness in Subject Classes. Now, admittedly, this is a resource intended for the secondary sector, for the schooling sector, but I thought at university level, even more than in school, you are relating to the content of the studies of your students. And I think there are a number of concrete tools on this website which might be interesting to look at. There are ideas for scaffolding techniques in subject classrooms or in classrooms where you introduce content at a higher level, at a higher competence level, and teachers can see how they can help their learners to access a more complex language. The resources are using language descriptors for subject embedded in subject areas. So I think there are some tools which could be interesting to use at a university level. Then let's look at curricula and evaluation, the thematic theme that you can click on directly from the ECML website. And there's a tool called CFR Quali Matrix, a quality assurance matrix for CFR use. Brian North was a team member in the team who developed this tool. Enrica Picardo was the team leader, the project coordinator. And this is really a very comprehensive website introducing key principles and values of the CFR, offering tutorials on the use of this Quali Matrix, which is at the core of this resource. It's an online tool where you can go through reflective questions which are being recorded, and as a result you can print your responses and use it for teacher education, for example, for discussion with your teachers in your University Language Center, in order to see where you are with regard to the implementation of the CFR principles. Another tool that is not yet 100% finalized, it's ongoing, or the full resources are available by the end of the year. It's a project team working on digital citizenship. And what is already available on the website is this little booklet on a profile of citizens as users of languages and digital technology. What is a digital citizenship? That was the first question the team asked themselves. An awkward term. We don't want to see ourselves as being digital. But in this publication, the team has undertaken the work based on a review of research and academic publications. They've identified not competences, but definitions of what it takes to act in a digital world with the background of democratic citizenship. So there are a number of really interesting ideas what it takes us to be competent in a digital world, in a digital and democratic world. Now, in addition, and based on this profile, the team has developed task sheets, real-life task sheets, where you can send off your students or groups of students to work on tasks in the internet. This is an example for FOMO. I don't know if you've come across the fear of missing out. Students being online all the time, and when they're not online, they fear to miss something. And this is a task where students are sent off to websites, not in one language, but websites available in a number of different languages, and they have to complete tasks and to present their results in the classroom. The second one is about cyber harassment. And again, students are invited to use a number of different websites and to produce results as a team. Now, there are examples of these task sheets already available on the website, but by the end of the year, the full set of tasks will be on the ECML website. Now, an area which you're probably familiar with, action research communities for language teachers. All our websites are available in 2 languages. The previous one was English and French. This one is available in English and German. And this is a website where you are really guided through the various steps of considering action research as an approach to learn more about your classroom. There are very concrete materials like this checklist for action research projects in the language classroom, where you can really go through the checklist step by step, and you can use that in order to conceive your own action research for your own classroom or for your teachers if you want to implement that together with other colleagues in your University Language Center. The inventory of ICT tools and open educational resources. Yes, thank you. Joe Hopkins is available for any question regarding this tool. He's a member of the team, and it's a great tool available since a number of years. It's a very frequently accessed tool on the ECML website. You can search for certain aspects or certain activities like speaking, writing, listening, or group work activities. And then you get online tools via the search engine, and these tools are explained and they've been evaluated by didactic criteria. And these are really nice and easy to use tools. I can really recommend that. But Joe knows a lot more about that, so please, if you have any question about this tool, please refer to him. Thanks, Joe, for updating this website on a constant basis. All right, a final tip, which is really a website there for everybody. You probably, or maybe you're familiar with the European Day of Languages. Which day is it? 26th, yeah, very far in the back, I hear 26th of September, right? And of course you have to prepare for that day, and you could go to the ECML website where you really find a lot of nice ideas. I say with modesty, ideas available in a large number of languages. It's more than 30 languages that some of these tools are available, and Spanish is obviously represented. So please do use this website. There are very small scale activities like tongue twisters in different languages, but you also get ideas for how to organize activities on this special day, 26th of September every year. And you might want to bake a cake on this occasion, and you'll find recipes in many different languages. All right, ECML resources coming soon. And I just throw that at you. These are the topics of project teams at the moment working in the final stages, available end of the year. And I need to highlight one particular project team. Big thank you, Johann Fischer and all team members. I know it's hard work to finish a project. Big thank you to all cooperation partners. You see ACLES is there, CERCLES is there. I think it's a really very impressive network that Johann and team have gathered. Big thank you, and we look forward to the results. All right, a key feature of the ECML, that's my final slide. We have arrived in Graz. 2,600 kilometers, well done. This is a simple photo really, but it's a very concrete and realistic photo taken at a discussion group at the ECML. Is it 6 people from 6 different countries, and they talk about their experience and they learn from each other. This is what the ECML can offer, and this is where Spain from now on, I'm confident, is going to be involved. And this actually goes back to this recommendation that I've presented earlier. One recommendation is to support collaboration to promote plurilingual intercultural learning for democratic culture. It's an easy sentence, isn't it? But what does it mean in practice? It's not so easy to keep up contact with your colleagues in all these different countries. The other day we spoke about the number of emails ending up in your inbox. How can you possibly cope? It's about prioritization, I think. And I think European collaboration, if it is on top of your list, it's worth it. It will work for you. That's what I can say from the responses I get from team members and from participants in ECML activities. So I do look forward to meet you in Graz soon, hopefully. Big thank you for your contributions so far. As you know, we have Spanish collaborators, team members, and we do look forward to stronger cooperation with Spain. Thank you.
Are there any questions you want to ask Susanna, either in English mostly? So are there any questions you would like to ask?
Bueno, pues, buenos días. Good morning. I have the pleasure of introducing our next plenary speaker, Libor Stepanek. Libor Stepanek is an assistant professor in English and director of the Masaryk University Language Center in the Czech Republic. He's also an EAP teacher, researcher, and teacher trainer in the area of EMI and creative approach to language teaching. And he encourages global perspectives in English teaching, close cooperation between teaching and research, teacher autonomy, and leaderships in education. The the keynote that we're going to enjoy has the title of Crucial Roles of Language Centers in University Internationalization, Conscious Choices. And dear Libor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Hola a todos. Es un gran placer y honor para mí estar aquí porque este congreso es una maravilla, todo genial, mucha inspiración, tanta calidad. Todo lo mejor, pues muchas gracias que puedo estar aquí con vosotros. And now I'm going to switch to English for the final speech here. It's a rather difficult thing to do because we've been talking about internationalizations and language centers for these 3 days, and I think that we've heard almost everything, so I'll try to give some perspective that hopefully will inspire you more, and at the same time will comment on the things that have been said in these days. Also, those of you who've seen my comments in the roundtable, you will maybe expect some controversial issues, so maybe I'll bring that as well. First, I'll talk a little bit about internationalization in higher education sector. Then I will focus on us as language centers, who we are and what we do and why. And finally, I will show some of the choices we've made in Brno at Masaryk University, and I hope to generalize so that we can see why we've done it and what can be done in general. Before I start, I should explain a little bit why I have these two logos there, MUNI as Masaryk University and then EUI. It is a European University Institute in Florence, where I'm currently now for a year just doing my sabbatical. So I don't think I have to introduce Florence, but this institute is rather interesting because it is an institution that was established by European Union in 1970, so it is very international in its very fundamental state. And it has very different issues than every other universities that we have. So sometimes I'll comment on that, but most of the time I'll be commenting on my home base, and it is Brno. And I think that I should say a few words about that town because for some of you it's definitely the first time you've heard about it. So Brno is the second city of the Czech Republic. We often say that, well, everybody knows Prague, and we know that Prague is the most beautiful and fantastic. So we just say that, well, Prague, keep your beauty and your tourists. We in Brno, we enjoy life. So, Brno is the city with the highest quality of life, with the best bars, with the best restaurants in the country, and we love that. Also, it is one of the best or most popular cities for university students, because if you think about Brno, it is about 500,000 city where 400,000 people are people and 100,000 people are university students. So you can imagine that there are 6 public universities, so the life is really vibrant, and that's what we like about the city. Our language center, Masaryk University is also the second largest university in the country with about 35,000 students, and our language center is the largest in the country with 120 staff members dealing with about 10,000 students every term. So it is a huge institution even within the university, and that's why we do certain things that some language centers, for example, don't do. So when I say that, for example, the conscious choices later that we make, it is not a typical thing for the Czech Republic. Let's say that in this way, Masaryk University is a little bit exceptional. But I think that, as I'm saying, I'll try to generalize a little bit. Okay, so that's about where I come from, or what my background is. And now let's go to the main point of this conference. It is internationalization. Before I go to, well, not definitions, but comments on internationalization, I'd like you to give it a thought. We've been talking about it for 3 days. Now, if somebody came and asked you, well, I've heard internationalization, just in your head, how would you characterize it? What would you say? Don't worry, we're not going to share. It's just in your head, what would you think is the most essential or most important thing? Few seconds to think about it. And after these few seconds, I'm going to calm everybody down, because I'm going to give you some, well, not definitions, but comments. So already in 1995, Knight and DeWitt said, there is no simple, unique, or all-encompassing definition of internationalization of the university, meaning all of you were right, because there is not a simple definition of what that is. In that time also, they said it is not helpful for internationalization to become a catch-all phrase for everything and anything international. So basically, internationalization is anything when we talk about international things, and it is not a good thing. And it hasn't changed in those 20, 30 years, because in 2018, they comment on the same thing. That notion is probably even truer now. Internationalization has become a very broad and varied concept, including new rationales, approaches, and strategies in different and constantly changing contexts. I might say it's a very strange concept to say, well, we don't know what it is and it keeps changing. Okay, that's something that is very difficult to operate in. And we continue, and last year a publication on research on internationalization in higher education said the concept of internationalization continues to be refined and revised, and theories and definitions adjusted to match new and evolving understandings. So still nobody has a clue what we are talking about. That's the great base. However, there are certain things that I'm sometimes really surprised by, and comments of those people who otherwise great, fantastic job, bring sentences like, while internationalization of higher education is a relatively new phenomenon. Like, excuse me? Relatively new internationalization. We are in Salamanca. Okay. I went to Wiki, and obviously, some areas don't have to be that stressed. So it says that at the very beginning of university life here in Salamanca, the mobility, international mobility, was not such an issue. But obviously we know that in general it has been very international. But if we go to Bologna, the first university ever, and we go and ask how come that university was established, and don't worry, you don't have to read these things, I'm going to read it for you, so these are just pictures, and don't worry. So it says the university arose around mutual aid societies of foreign students. So university was based by foreign students, okay? They needed to protect themselves, and they created university. So internationalization has been with us from the very beginning, okay? There is one more comment which is completely off topic and which I love mostly. It is the students could enforce their demands as to the content of courses. So now when you hear from your colleagues that, oh, there's feedback from students, we don't like these novelties. No, it is, feedback from students is also in our DNA, let's say, at universities. Then when I moved to the Czech Republic, to area where I come from, Charles University was established in 1346. And again, internationalization was there immediately. The Reformation, when it started in late 14th century, you can see, and here it is where we come in, internationalization, mobility, meant not only mobility, but also languages. And we can see that people at university, there was for example, there Konrad Waldhauser, an Austrian guy who preached in German and Latin. Then another person, Milicev Kromnyaji, was presenting in Latin, Czech, and German. So more languages, mobility, it has been with us for centuries. There is another comment that, for example, moving between universities, Prague and Paris, was also from the beginning. Okay, so this is internationalization. We know it is with us, universities. If we look at languages, how important they have been at universities, I will go to the last century. So, for example, in 1930s, this person was studying business at Charles University in Prague, and surprisingly, in the first year, 8 out of 18 courses in the first year and 7 out of 16 courses in the second year were languages. Okay, so it was, well, German for the geographical reasons, then English and French as global languages, and then there was a choice of a small language that they could choose. At that time, I always say, if you think of 1930s, Czechoslovakia, 7th richest country in the world, what they studied at universities were languages were completely important thing. So we can see that languages are with us. 1990s, my study, and you can see from what I'm doing that, well, I studied history. So here, for me, being Czech in my region, compulsory courses in history were in Latin and German, because obviously if we wanted to go to primary sources, that's languages. But because it was 1990s, where professors who were not allowed to teach during the time of communism came back from the West, mainly, where they taught, they didn't bother with, for example, quoting their colleagues in Czech. They simply quoted them in original. So what it was like to be a student of history in 1990s in Brno was that there was a professor who was talking in Czech, but from time to time said, well, as my colleague in Cambridge said, and there was a sentence in English, and as my colleague in Sorbonne said, and there was a sentence in French, and there was a sentence in Italian, and, well, deal with it somehow. So we had to somehow orientate ourselves in the languages, and, for example, Slavic languages were taken for granted. So we got a document, 13th century Polish, we said, sorry, we don't speak Polish. The reaction was, try harder. I was like, Slavic languages, you should have orientation. So again, saying languages at universities, definitely in many disciplines, important. Let's look at today. Strategic Plan of Masaryk University, Internationalization, what it means for the 21st century. The development of mobility, the expansion of course offerings and programs in foreign languages, the enhancement of support services for international students and employees, the increase in international cooperation, and the development of international marketing activities. Is there any difference from the Bologna time? No. Okay, mobility, programs for foreign languages, foreign students, it is constantly the same. If we look at the EUI institution, it's a different story because it is international institution of its own. So, for example, for them, internationalization means already focusing in certain areas. And it is a European institution, so one priority is engaging globally. So what they say that internationalization is program must be defined that will enhance the interest for EUI activities outside Europe. So that's a very important thing for us to think globally. And another comment which is really interesting is that diversity and inclusiveness includes languages. So it is, this institution has the very idea of promotion, diversity and inclusiveness and interconnections between languages, cultures and scientific approaches. There's one of the things that I want to say is really essential or interesting, that we often forget that when we talk about intercultural, for example, communication, we often mean cultures of different nations or different communities, but we forget that each discipline has their own culture. And this interculturality is also really important, and us as language teachers, we should realize that things can be very different, and teaching in languages or languages for purposes in one discipline can be very different culturally than in another discipline. And obviously, we are here in Salamanca, and we know that you have just approved new plan of internationalization of education. So internationalization is very much the word of today. So we've done history, we've done today, and what about the future? Obviously, the future is going to be dictated by artificial intelligence, as we are all afraid of. What we are all afraid of. So what I had to do was I had to ask our lovely ChatGPT, and what I did was I asked, can you write an internationalization strategy for the University of Salamanca in Spain in 10 bullet points? Okay, the thing is, just to explain why I did it in this way. I had to explain to the artificial intelligence, which is not intelligent enough, that I mean University of Salamanca in Spain, because there are more Salamancas in the world, and since AI is scanning the world, I don't know whether there are more hits for Salamancas in Latin America or the US. There's one thing. Another thing is, what I want to, when you see that there are typos and it is not written properly, I know that I communicate with a machine, okay? Back home at Masaryk University, I also teach researchers in computer science, and we had a lovely discussion about how to communicate with AI, and they suggested that we should be polite, and for example, when the AI produces the outcome, we should say thank you, because it is a lovely thing to do. I was trying to explain to them that there is something like living nature, non-living nature, like the machines. And when I go and buy a ticket to go to Madrid from a lady at the railway station, for example, yes, I'm polite, and then I say thank you. When I go to the machine and I just buy the ticket there, I'm not saying thank you to the machine. Sorry, okay? So this is one of the things that I just said, no, I'm just giving orders to this machine, and I'm not going to be nice to it, because I don't have to, okay? What happened? What did we get? Internationalization strategy. Let's go through that. 10 bullet points. So how to make internationalization strategy for this university. Establishing an international office, fine. Promoting cultural exchange programs, yes. Increasing English language proficiency. Expanding study abroad opportunities. Encouraging joint degree programs. Supporting international research collaborations. Introducing international curricula. Enhancing digital learning and virtual mobility, strengthening alumni networks, and intensifying marketing and recruitment efforts. There are two things that will strike us. Number one is there anything surprising? No. Okay? It is just a description of what we are doing. Why is that? Because obviously AI at the moment is just a scan what exists on the internet. We have to know that AI is not coming with creative new solutions. It is just generating what already exists. And in this context, if we ask for new ideas, if we are completely ignorant about the field, then we may be surprised that things are taking place. If we are knowledgeable about the field, obviously we know all of this is happening at the University of Salamanca or all of our universities. Because the system is that AI generates the highest probability of the next word. So, of course, if it scans the whole internet, we know what it produces. The scary thing about this result is the languages. We have internationalization, and there is only one comment in the whole internet about languages within internationalization, and it is English language proficiency. So we have double problem here. Like there is just one comment on language, and when we think of language, it is just English language proficiency. We will see later that there is this double dominance of English. So when we think about knowledge in general, well, if we go to the Library of Salamanca, most of the things are not going to be in English, right? But if we go to the internet, we will be generating English sources, and this limits us already in the knowledge. So this is something that we have to bear in mind. So when I talk about internationalization, I must say it is nothing new. It's been with us since the beginning. The problem about internationalization, it is anything. We can talk, we always have to define what we are talking about when we want to discuss internationalization, because it can be anything. And obviously, in our context, we need to focus on languages, what roles languages play and why we should be part of it. Okay, so what I did, obviously, working with AI, I just changed the task and said, can you create internationalization policy for the University of Salamanca in Spain in 10 bullet points, where Language Center is the central focal point of the activities. And let's see, we'll go point by point and we will see what, and now I repeat, what the scan of the entire internet brings us as ideas. So number one, we should be simply excellent. Okay, Language Center excellence. The first sentence is really funny because it says, position the Language Center as the key hub for internationalization efforts. Obviously we know that, but how to do it? Nobody knows, okay? So we know that that would be a lovely goal, but difficult to do it. On the other hand, providing high-quality language instruction, that's what we're doing. Testing, yes. Support services to students, faculty, and staff, obviously that's our job. Number two, multilingual campus environment. Again, no surprise, all of our universities are international. There are a lot of students on campuses, and we as language centers, we care. So we produce activities, we do things for international students, international staff. Fantastic. Intensive language programs. So we should develop and expand intensive language programs to cater to the needs of international students, facilitate their integration into academic and social life. Again, very much our everyday job. Language proficiency certification. Here we can see that at least, because the AI knew that it is happening in Spain, that a part of TOEFL suggested DELE, so we are glad that at least it monitors certification in Spanish. But definitely certification, again, our daily life. International faculty development. So as we talked about the thing in the round table, supporting faculty members, staff in their language development. Number 6, language for academic purposes. What a surprise, right? A part of general languages, we should also focus for the academic disciplines needs, let's say. Intercultural competence training. This is something which is a positive thing, again, that probably a lot of language centers do, because otherwise it wouldn't appear here. And it is important to say that interculturality, as I was saying, does not mean only international things, but cultures of all types. International student support, once again, well, all other services like counseling and orientation programs, which are very often, by the way, activities of the international centers, right? There's not that much of language centers, but international ones. Language center collaboration, thank you. This is why we are here. This is why this conference is taking place. And finally, strategic partnerships. So getting together with renowned language institutions and universities. That's why we are getting together with you, Salamanca, here. And so, as I was saying, there are no things that would be surprising. These are the things that already exist. This is something that we do. And now the key question is, how come we are not the center, the hub of internationalization? Like, all of it is there, all of it we do, but how come that we are not part of it? In this moment, we have to go to people, okay? Because people are creative, people think what the things can be. And I go back to a group of language center directors. Some of you know the Woolco group. This group has been working together for more than 10 years, and from time to time they create memoranda, which means that they make a public statement on an issue. And back in 2009, they basically created a self-definition memorandum, like what we are. And this is one of the key aspects in that question, why we are not the key hub of internationalization, because sometimes we see ourselves very differently to what the rest of the world sees us. So, for example, already in 2009, what we said, language centers play a pivotal role in the development and delivery of effective internationalization strategies throughout the European higher education sector. Okay, so we believe already that we play that role. Okay, so we say that, yes, this is us. We say that we actively contribute to the successful implementation of key aspects of the Bologna process, providing the linguistic and intercultural tools for effective mobility. That's something where we can see ourselves quite clearly, that yes, we are the tool for international mobility concerning communication. But there's the third point, which is extremely important, and it is that we are able to contribute not only to the theoretical and intellectual issues in language teaching, but we are best placed to apply all these ideas, which are coming later, effectively, thereby benefiting all stakeholders in this process. Meaning that we as language centers, we know that we have a lot of expertise outside of just language, and we are trying to suggest that we can do basically anything. And the proof is here in the next, again, you can't read it, but I read it for you. So what we claim in that memorandum as language centers, that we have sound management structures which promote a sense of professionalism and career development. We have sound staffing policies which are fit for the purpose. We are a bridge between the higher education and the business and public communities. We say that we cater to the needs of learners and we support autonomous learning. So we are in methodology area. Okay? We stimulate innovation in research. So we dare to compete with research at universities. We say that we establish contacts again between academics and business experts to bring them to universities. We also see ourselves as the forefront of developments in e-learning and adaptation of new technologies. We also say that we demonstrate a strong commitment to an awareness of the quality agenda. Finally, there is one word about languages. We recognize and promote acquisition of all languages, and we commit to multilingualism and support the role of English as lingua franca. So again, notice that as a language center, our memorandum says who we are, and again, languages are not much present, okay? Despite the fact that we are called language centers. Then we go for recognizing co-mission in teaching languages, but we also embrace new roles and creating courses which develop other key competences and skills for global communication. And finally, we maximize the academic and professional potential of all students and staff, and we reach out to communities. So as I'm saying, when we define ourselves, we know that, of course, languages are our core discipline. This is what we do. But at the same time, we want to say we are more, and we are much more. And this is what is a little bit confusing to the rest of the world, because they see the word language, and they see us as language centers, which we're called. Let's go for more explanation on how we try to tell the world who we are, what we do. University of Groningen, in their vision and mission, they say, express yourself, understand the world. This is us. We believe that language is more than just language. It is a cultural transmitter. Okay? It provides mutual understanding, social interaction, and fruitful business context. It strengthens the relationships between people and organizations. Okay, language is not just vocabulary and grammar, it is much more. That's Groningen. Cambridge, increase multilingualism. It promotes, encourages, and supports the learning of languages, obviously that's good, but then exploits the latest technologies and pedagogies, fosters autonomy, provide bespoke professional advisory services, and so on and so on. So again, a lot of other things that we engage in. And Masaryk University, this is the funniest thing is I'm partially responsible for that. There is not a single word of languages in our vision or mission. We say that we encourage intellectual and personality growth. We increase students, academics, and university staff international mobility, improve their position in the global market, and we support international cooperation and intensive exchange of knowledge, ideas, and information on a worldwide scale. Again, nothing about languages. We want you to develop through languages, and we try to somehow suppress the idea of languages. So this is the issue that we have. We want to take a lot of roles in the university life, but we live in universities, and universities love disciplines. Okay, these little boxes where you are and when you fit in. And when we as language centers say yeah, but we can do anything. Like, we can provide, well, bring in technology and do methodology and talk about this and do this. So the university and public is a little bit confused of who we are and what we do. That's why I call this speech conscious choices, because we obviously are capable of doing a lot of things in a lot of areas, but we should consciously target what is, in this context, internationalization focus, for example. So here, I'm going to start with those ideas that are related to the decisions that we've made at Masaryk University. This is a table that just shows all activities that we do as language centers. Probably you have something similar. In the columns, again, it is not a problem that you don't see it, is the students, Masaryk University staff and public, and then in the rows we have what we do. We do courses, we do other language education services, translations, proofreading, research projects, simply a lot of activities. We do because some of the things we are required to do, some of other things we simply chose to do because we are interested in that. And out of that huge area of activities, by the way, the yellow bit is the core activity that we do. It is those 10,000 students that in accredited courses that we teach every term. All the other activities are simply something that we may do, might do, or we are required in certain times. So out of those activities, I chose 4 areas that are important for us. And it is sound management structures and sound staffing policies, then focus on new technologies, then reaching out to the communities, and then new roles. And I'm going to explain why those areas have been chosen and why I think, for example, for how it helped Masaryk University Language Center to increase its potential in influencing what is happening at Masaryk University. So number 1, management structures and staffing policies. This is absolutely essential for us to make sure that when we claim that we are high-quality centers, institutions, that we know that we can prove it. And we can prove it only through quality management or quality assurance systems. So for example here, again, I'll explain the thing because you can't see what's written there. So for example, we are bilingual university, theoretically, so English and Czech, everything is in English and Czech. Our recruitment process goes through 4 rounds, and it is global, so we recruit people globally. Once you get in, then as a staff member, you are expected, or you have also the right, to have 2 quality interviews with your boss per year, let's say, and before you get an unlimited contract, you go through another re-interview, let's say, where you have to kind of explain why you want to stay in that position, and also you go through certain development center where we kind of check whether this is for the whole team a great, let's say, situation that we keep the person who wants to stay. But then when we think about the whole year, at the beginning of the year, all staff members write their work plan. At the end, they write a report and they basically reflect on what has been happening. It is not the thing that if you don't do what you planned, it is wrong. No, it's just, you just have to explain what happens. Then you have 2 collegial observations per term. So every time you have to go and observe 2 of your colleagues so that you can develop yourself a little bit, and you write a little report, you discuss with the colleagues. Then every Thursday, there is a Thursday afternoon development or further development activity. So theoretically, we try to timetable the thing in such a way that there is little teaching so that everybody can basically join our courses on Thursdays. And of course, you don't have to join every single week, but every single week there is an activity that you can join and develop. Of course, then we support teaching mobility. We have also coaching program if you have an issue or a problem. You get feedback from students that you work on in such a way that you individually reflect on that feedback. You send that report to your boss and then you discuss it, what can be done. All this is fantastic for us because as Language Center, we are service support for the what is happening at university. When there is a problem, and there is, for example, a complaint from a student that we don't provide high-quality service, for us it's very easy. I bring the report from observations, from the boss's interview, from the student's feedback. Here are the materials. This goes against the complaint of a student who, and it either proves it or it suggests, okay, look, we work with data. We don't work on ideas that a student who, for example, is not happy with their own language exam result, but happens to be a member of the Senate or the faculty, has access, direct access to the dean and complains that we have to deal with that. So thanks to this quality management, we can always prove that our work is controlled, let's say, in a certain way. And for example, some of the faculties that want to join the HR award system, which is about trying to have the highest quality assurance or management systems, they take even advantage of the existing thing already. So we can inspire faculties, we can inspire the university. Okay, let's move to new technologies. New technologies, it is for us really important, and as you could see from my cynical comment on AI, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, well, I just know that they exist, but professionally, we know that they dominate the, let's say, evolution or development of methodologies in education, so we basically have to deal with it and we have to be in contact. So, for example, Masaryk University Language Center in 2006-2008, we had already research in video conferencing, how to work with groups of students who communicate through video conferencing, whether there is any difference between whether language teaching in physical space and in an online space. And obviously this later proved to be very useful during the COVID times when we were kind of more prepared for the situation. Also, thanks to the fact that we have the methodologies, we can also tell the university when they told us, well, you have to go to the hybrid, and I need to explain at Masaryk it meant hybrid, people physical in the room plus people online at the same time. So we were very confident in saying, okay, show us the methodology that will prove that this is effective. And if it is not, then just leave us alone and we will work with the methodologies that we know that work. And by the time you develop the effective strategies for that thing, then we can join you. Also, we have to know, because a lot of people are now engaged in new technologies just because it's fun or it's fashion or whatever, but we again want to know more. So for example, when we move from just writing on board to Padlet or Mentimeter on those things, so how effective that is. I mean, if you have a 20-minute activity and 7 minutes out of that you are explaining to different students how to read the QR code and how to deal with that and why this Padlet's icon, or well, not icon, but this part or table does not move and all those things. So is it still effective? Wouldn't that be more effective if those 7 minutes were used for language in your language class? So all these things are really essential to know, that if I use it, I know why I'm using it. Then the AI, a lot of people now, I would call it a little bit of hysteria, are saying, well, yes, it's terrible, end of the world. It is not. Look at mathematics. 1960s has brought the calculators. If we think about methodologies, how to teach mathematics up till 1960s, and from, let's say, late 70s, early 80s on, it had to be changed completely. So when we think about it, there are analogies in this world, and we can see, for example, how to deal with vocabulary, very similar to multiplication tables in figures, with working with calculators. So for us, of course, the first moment was hysteria, yes, end of the world, but then now we calm down and we can think of analytical approach and saying, okay, where the methodologies have been already exposed to technologies, how that changed, and whether we can use anything of what we've learned. Here a little bit of controversy. We already use at Masaryk a lot of AI, for example, for translations. As it was said here that some of the some of the tools, let's say, are not of high quality. I'm not sure. Czech is a very small language, so I don't think that it is target number one of the global, let's say, translation companies. But, for example, there was a study made that for, of course, general language purposes, not fiction, for example, that there was a blind peer review on translations that were done by AI and by real people, and all the AI translations were evaluated as better than the physical people thing. So we just said, okay, well, this is a proof, this is evidence, we don't question it, we are university. So for example, here is a little example of Friday, 21st April this year, 2 p.m., I send an email to certain Vera. Vera is not a translator, she is my assistant, has nothing to do with languages as such. 90 minutes later, I got back translation of 16,000 words, structured, and I just send it to the editing. We would send it to editing anyway, the translation, because there must be like proofreading thing. But if you think about 16,000 word translation of high quality in 90 minutes done by your assistant, the thing how you save time, money, everything, simply it is, now we can disagree with what works or not, but I mean, certain things are here and we can decide what we do about it. Okay, now reaching out. It is important for us as language centers to also understand that university is a policy area, and we have to know who to contact and who to be in contact with. So, for example, it doesn't matter how many fantastic courses for bachelor students we have. It really doesn't matter, because this information does not get to the top of the university. But if we care about, I don't say care more, but care equally about courses for PhDs, researchers, academics, this is the area where we know that we will be seen and we will be appreciated, and people at the top will understand the quality of the language center. So, for example, this reaching out means that if you look at, for example, some courses that we provide for PhDs, it is academic communication skills in English, project skills in English, international performance, critical thinking for critical times, academic writing. All of these things are obviously language plus another skill. All of it is for either PhDs or academics, and all of it, thanks to the quality, have a clear reflection in the image of the language center. And I just read a few comments which are rather worrying from the PhDs on those courses. For example, they comment in their feedback, I enjoy that this course was about communication and powerfully expressing your message. Firstly, I was worried that it would be just another English course focused on grammar. But I was pleasantly surprised. I have many takeaways, blah, blah, blah. Or, first off, I'd like to say that my expectations going to this course were next to none. I fully expected yet another grammar drilling session with a touch of memorization of common phrases for good measure. Okay, so these are experiences of learners. And then they comment on other things. So, for example, at first I was skeptical. I believed that my level of English communication skills were already high and that the course would not provide me with anything other than an opportunity to practice. To my surprise, I realized that during the second practical session that my knowledge is mostly limited to the language itself and that there is still plenty to learn. I also realized how different language communication is in contrast to Czech communication and how important it is to read the nonverbal clues that the person or audience I'm communicating with is giving away. And comments like this are really important because these people are in direct contact with the heads of departments, with the top university management, and they see that what we claimed before, or what we said that yes, we can do it as language centers, it is not just grammar sessions on language, it is communication, it is many other things. These are pieces of evidence that are shown to the university. Here I can also say a little bit of the development that we've been through. For example, if I go through the public speaking or presentations or whatever we call it, lessons that we've been offering, let's say those 20 years ago, that was be purely or mostly focused on language. So we would be talking about words, phraseology, how to structure the text and all those things. Later on, we would add, obviously, audiovisual ads. And these days, we have to explain what audiovisual ads are, how they work, so that they don't overwhelm whatever you are saying, and what type of ads are effective, which are not. Later on, we add results of psychology. So this non-verbal communication skills, we talked about it in the workshop. So for example, how to work with the tone of your voice, how to increase your credibility, for example, just by the tone, or how to make sure that people understand what is important and what is not, simply by changing the pace and rhythm of your speech. All of that is really essential. Then we've added also this intercultural aspect, adjusting presentation to diverse audiences. When I talk to people in an international group in Spain, there will be completely different structure of my presentation than when I talk to the same group, theoretically same group, in Germany, in Britain. There will be very different thing if I say the same thing to the group of bachelors or students, or if I'm talking about this to general public. So all of it is really essential that they know how to tailor their speeches to the audience. And finally, recent years, neuroscience. I mean, students are really surprised that these days we talk about hormone level, how to structure your speech in a way that when you need your audience to be collaborating with you, you structure it in such a way that, well, you just, I don't know, work on one type of hormone. If you just want them to be happy about these new ideas, you structure differently. And all these things are there. Neuroscience can show and prove that it is simply our biological reaction. And if they are not aware of it, they are disadvantaged. Because I'm not saying that they should be using it if they don't like it, but definitely we have to be aware of it, and they should be aware of it as well. So today, public speaking is basically communicating science to target audiences with the highest knowledge possible of all other disciplines that we are working with. Okay? Then, another reaching out is our capability of, let's say, structuring courses and programs. Here, this is in Czech, so you don't even have to look at it, but this is a table that shows what happened last spring in the Czech Republic at Masaryk University. Simply after Russia invaded Ukraine, there were a lot of refugees coming, and Masaryk University decided that they will accept any university students who would apply, but at the same time, there was this management task, let's say, and they said, but we want them, and they were arriving, let's say, 1st April, we want them to be able to start our courses in September and join our courses in Czech. So basically, Language Center, can you make sure that people who come in April, May, they will be able to start studying in September in full Czech programs? Obviously, yes, it took us a week or so of understanding what the situation could be like, but finally we managed to do these things, and we said, okay, we know that it is B2 level where we need to get them. We know how many hours that is from 0 to B2. It is doable if you give us 30 hours per week from early May to the end of August. There is a potential that a lot of them who will be working hard, they can manage it. Of course, when we brought this thing, they were completely perplexed as university management, because we told them, look, we know that when we are dealing with 500 students, it is 35 intensive courses, we need 4 external teachers, we need rooms, we need this, complete analysis of what is needed. When we think of university outside of language centers, if you want a new program, you take a very relaxed way, because you know that there are accreditation processes. So when they ask you, could we have a new program, it is 2 years, typically, right? And in 2 years it appears. For the Language Center, give us, this is equivalent of a new program, like 35 courses, come on. So it is a thing that we've produced in a week or two. Okay, so this is another expertise that we know that we have. We can create courses like this because we have to be flexible, unlike the big university thing. And at the same time, if they do not know about this expertise that we can do, of course, it is more difficult to, let's say, deal with that, but we can show what we can do. Now, new roles. These are the final bits that we shouldn't be afraid of going into those new roles if we say that we can do it, we have the expertise. So, for example, here, this is just a few examples from the language policy. Language Center was invited to create language policy of the university. Obviously, it was really a funny situation because there were 12 people, none of them language person, university officials. Me, the only one with real language awareness, let's say, but all of those other people were interested in suppressing the role of Language Center. Whenever I said that, well, that could be done by Language Center, no, this is university language policy. Language Center is just a service center that works somewhere there. But sometimes we manage to push things which are really important or support things. So, for example, we have here that Masaryk University considers languages as a resource within the academic community and requires an active use of foreign languages in international teaching and research. Fantastic. Another comment is rather naive. For example, that Masaryk University wants to produce genuinely multilingual experts who can shift between languages effortlessly in real-life situation. Okay, well, I kept it there, well, saying, fantastic, if you want this, we would be extremely happy. Show us, okay, some of the academics who effortlessly just shifts between languages within the, let's say, discipline. On the other hand, they refuse to understand certain things that are essential for practicalities. So there is a comment, there is a coexistence between Czech and English as an academic lingua franca. Those of you who are at the round table already know that Czech, there is a little index meaning Czech or Slovak, because for historical reasons, simply Czech and Slovak are equal languages, so you can teach or you can answer and write your thesis in Slovak, and it is equal to Czech. The practicality is when I go back to the Ukrainian situation, fantastic, we've taught 500, or I don't know, at that time it was 350 or something, students, fantastic Czech, so that they come to their courses, and in September we get complaints from certain disciplines that they do not follow the courses. We said, no, it's not possible, we tested them, we know it, they went through fantastic, very detailed tests. Well, come on, the teacher teaching in Slovak. Well, of course, you don't realize, if you're not a language person, that there is a slight difference between Czech and Slovak, especially if you are a Ukrainian person who just learned Czech. So it is come on. So there, our role was, yes, we have to explain that there are certain problems when you when you are not a language person, you do not envisage that. Another new roles, the county of Moravia, which is where Masaryk University is based, has asked us whether we could develop a test for Czech for foreigners, for people who are coming, immigrants who are coming to the country. We realized that there is just one language testing body in the country, and they are very protective, but because this was a task that was given by the county, by the government, local government. So we just said, okay, let's try and let's give it a path, let's give it a go. So obviously we are not a testing center, but we have said, okay, we can try and we can be interested in how to develop high quality tests. Well, I have some colleagues here who are helping us with that. So this is about the collaboration. So new things, just trying out, and showing that we are capable of things outside of university. Or we were awarded 3 European Label Awards in years 2017, 19 and 22 for completely different areas. In one, it is Czech for Foreigners Online. It is a platform that was done at university for free for the whole country. And of course, the Ministry of Interior was extremely happy about it, because they were saying, now, yes, we have now something that we can offer to all the immigrants when they need to learn Czech and they, for example, don't have time or resources to go to courses. So that was appreciated, again, outside of the university. Teaching assistants, it is another thing. It was inspired by Helsinki University. International students coming to Masaryk University, they have a possibility to become teaching assistants. They go to our classes and they help in very different ways. So they combine their work with teachers, and sometimes they produce new publications, sometimes they create new materials, sometimes they are just real physical help in class, that they are, I don't know, when there is a group work, then they go from group to group. So very different things. The students are extremely happy because then they get certificate of this teaching assistant, so they are leaving Masaryk University with another certificate, another skill, another expertise that they can show in their CVs, for example. And the 2022 museum teaching module is a fantastic combination of community service, let's say. In this course, language course students go to a museum, they look at one exhibition, then they go back and create an educational program for elementary and secondary schools, and then students from elementary and secondary schools go to the museum and are taught by Masaryk University students in English and Spanish. So this is a community thing where everything is happening in the local museum, connection between university and other levels of education, simply a fantastic idea, and again, outside of our normal role. And if we go to bigger levels, there are international projects some of us are part of. For example, there was a Kudima project which was focused on creating new master in cultural heritage promotion in Tunisia. If you ask, well, Language Center, how are we there? What are we doing there? Well, it was very easy because it was bilingual master. So finally, languages played extremely important role in that project. And for example, here in Spain, there was one member was University of Alicante, not Language Center, but Department of History. And this time, I'm really proud of saying that we've managed to get funding for the new Epsilon project, which saves local disappearing languages in Amazonia. We're basically sending people in Salvador and Ecuador to the communities where there are last generation, there can be hundreds of community, and they're recording the languages, and we are going to have a great database of it that is going to turn into educational material so that these languages do not disappear, because when these people die, there is no, they simply disappear. So we have just started with that, and in that project, it is University of Santiago de Compostela, the geography department, that is part of the project. And finally, there are two other things. I would make Brian or Susanna happy that we are really interested in not only plurilingualism, but, for example, we have decided that we are going, as a language center, to translate the a companion volume into Czech, which it hasn't been translated yet. Now, why are we doing it? It is not because of the translation, but we know that in Czech, well, this companion volume brings a lot of new terminology, a lot of new ideas. They need to be, like, for the first time done in the Czech language, and it means that Language Center of Masaryk University will be in contact with top scientists in education, Czech language, translators. So we basically create this academic community around this translating team, and this is the core reason why we would like to do it. The same thing is our strong engagement in plurilingualism, because we believe that this, we truly believe that this is the way forward, that it is really important that people forget about these pedestals of I need to be perfect in one language or maybe two languages. That is much better to be kind of okay communicating in as many languages as we can. And we organize conferences, and we have a specific team that is researching things. And it is something, again, that is a conscious choice. We don't have to do that, but we've simply decided that we would go in that direction. Okay, so that was everything I wanted to share. When I was talking about internationalization, unfortunately, it is anything. So whenever we talk about it, we need to find always the area we want to talk about. Language centers, unfortunately, we pretend to be good at everything, which doesn't have to be always great. So the choices are really important, that we know where we really excel, our particular language center, and then we show it and we join the internationalization efforts and process in the at the university. And I would conclude with the idea that we know that internationalization is at the heart of university. Language centers are at the heart of university, so when we know that we have the expertise, experience, and professionalism, that for us it is just to connect those two hearts and the world will be fine. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Libor. Now we have a few minutes if any of you wishes to ask a question or make a comment. We have the time. Well, since there is no questions or comments, we shall make a small break and move on to the closure of this conference.
Buenos días. Iniciamos ya la última sesión, que es la clausura del XIII Congreso ACLES de Centros de Lenguas Universitarios e Internacionalización, nuevos desafíos, como ha sido el lema que habéis tenido en estos 3 días de jornada. Entonces, me presento, mi nombre es María José Rodríguez Conde, yo soy la vicerrectora de Calidad y Enseñanzas de Grado, de quien, bueno, en este momento está dependiendo el servicio de idiomas de nuestra universidad. Bueno, a los que tenemos a mi izquierda y a mi derecha, a Alfredo y a Juana, ya los conocéis todos. Al que no conocéis, esa otra figura que se ha sentado aquí a mi izquierda, él es Nicolás Rodríguez García, es el vicerrector de posgrado y enseñanzas propias de la universidad. Entonces, tanto el profesor Rodríguez García como Rodríguez Conde, no tenemos familia común, pero bueno, somos apellidos. Llevamos toda la parte de docencia de la Universidad de Salamanca, desde el grado, posgrado y enseñanzas propias, todo lo que son títulos oficiales y títulos propios. Entonces, quiero con esto simbolizar, en este caso en la clausura, en que la Universidad de Salamanca, digamos, es una universidad volcada hacia todo el tema de la internacionalización, sobre todo en este ámbito de las enseñanzas de la universidad. En otros ámbitos también, la investigación y la gestión, evidentemente, pero en este momento estamos realmente preocupados y ocupados en llevar a cabo eso. Y consideramos, lo voy a decir al final, pero quiero decir, consideramos que los centros de enseñanza son uno de los pilares fundamentales sobre los que asentar todas las políticas de internacionalización y de calidad sobre la enseñanza y la acreditación y, bueno, otras actividades que pueden desarrollar los centros de idiomas que consideramos que son muy importantes. Entonces, voy a dar la palabra, como es tradicional en un protocolo de este tipo, en primer lugar, pues a quien ha estado, digamos, en el ámbito local, en la organización local, desarrollando estas jornadas con tanto éxito. Adelante, el director del Servicio Central de Idiomas de la Universidad de Salamanca, Alfredo Fernández.
Muchas gracias, señora vicerrectora, querida María José. Compañeros, compañeras, yo después de estos días tan intensos solo me queda agradecer vuestra participación. Hemos aprendido, hemos compartido, nos hemos formado juntos y yo creo que hemos encontrado las múltiples cosas, los múltiples ejes en los que trabajamos juntos para avanzar en la internacionalización de las comunidades en las que pertenecemos a nivel nacional de la Universidad Española y, por qué no, también mediante los vínculos que mantenemos con asociaciones como CERCLES a nivel internacional. Mi agradecimiento por vuestra participación, sin la cual un congreso, un evento de estas características sencillamente no tendría lugar ni razón de ser. Estoy deseando el siguiente, que como había anunciado la presidenta será en Alicante. Y bueno, me queda agradecer también a las personas que han colaborado con nosotros. Les veréis por el fondo de la sala que llevan la camiseta del Servicio Central de Idiomas, que es la de moda este verano. Y evidentemente nos han estado aguantando, apoyando, vamos, sin parar desde bastante tiempo antes del momento de comienzo del Congreso. Y obviamente también quiero agradecer, vamos, con todo mi corazón a los compañeros que me aguantan en el día a día en el Servicio de Idiomas, que llevan 2 años dándole vueltas a las cosas que estábamos preparando con gran ilusión para lograr el mayor éxito posible en este Congreso. Mis compañeros que están sentados aquí a mi izquierda, miembros del Servicio Central de Idiomas de la Universidad de Salamanca. Y con esto yo no os entretengo más, porque han sido 2 días y medio muy intensos. Yo no hace falta que me lo digáis, os lo veo también en la cara. Yo creo que estamos todos cansados, cansadas, pero que hemos disfrutado, hemos aprendido. Así que hasta la próxima ocasión, que espero sea muy pronto.
Gracias, Alfredo, y damos la palabra a vuestra presidenta de ACLES. Juana, adelante.
Gracias, María José. Bien, pues yo quiero sobre todo dar las gracias a la Universidad de Salamanca porque nos ha acogido de una manera excepcional. Tanto con el apoyo de sus autoridades, tuvimos la inauguración al rector, ahora tenemos aquí a 2 vicerrectores, nos ha proporcionado cobijo con unas instalaciones maravillosas, estamos aquí debajo del estandarte del príncipe Juan, hijo de los Reyes Católicos, no os digo más, el peso de la historia aquí sobre nuestros hombros. Y además quiero agradecer, por supuesto, a todo el equipo de la organización que os habéis dejado la piel, que ha sido un congreso maravilloso, os habéis dejado la piel tanto que casi acabáis con la nuestra, lo intenso que ha sido todo, las actividades que hemos llevado estos días, pero han sido súper interesantes y yo me voy con la sensación de que salimos muy reforzados, todos los centros de lenguas, porque todos los temas que se han tratado en los talleres, en las plenarias, la tecnología, la inclusión, etcétera, me hacen ver que todas estas cosas que a veces sentimos como amenazas no son amenazas, sino que realmente ya estamos en el camino de utilizarlas a favor y de aprovechar todas esas circunstancias. Así es que yo pienso que debemos estar muy contentos. Las 2 conferencias de esta mañana han sido muy motivadoras, tanto la de Susanna del ECML como la de Libor, por una parte viéndonos todas las posibilidades que nos ofrecen para formación, para proyectos, etcétera. Por otra parte, Libor contando su idea de la internacionalización y de todo lo que los centros de lenguas hacemos, y además como muestra quiero agradecer a todos los asistentes y a todos, sobre todo a nuestros colegas y socios internacionales, porque realmente esto también es internacionalización. Nada más, nos veremos en Alicante, espero. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, pues nada, para finalizar ya, y como hemos dicho que este acto es muy cortito y ya hoy es día sábado, que también agradeceros a todos la presencia en Salamanca en 3 días tan intensos y además, digamos, cogiendo al parte del fin de semana, que eso es importante. Bueno, por mi parte, simplemente en nombre del rector de la Universidad de Salamanca, que fue quien inauguró, y ahora en nuestro nombre, los vicerrectores, que estamos realmente preocupados por todo este tema de la internacionalización, no solo ya porque la nueva ley de universidades en España, la LOSU, nos lo pone en uno de los capítulos como recomendación de la Unión Europea, evidentemente, sino porque realmente creemos que una universidad sin toda la faceta propia de la globalización, internacionalización, hoy en día no va a ningún camino. La Universidad de Salamanca, ya los que no la habéis conocido, los que la conocéis de hace tiempo, sabéis que es la universidad decana de las universidades españolas, son 800 años aquí manteniendo las aulas abiertas curso a curso y en sus orígenes y bueno, en todo el desarrollo posterior. Es un origen internacional, junto con Bolonia. Salamanca, Oxford y París pues fueron las 4 primeras universidades que se crean y se crean en aquel momento con un lenguaje común. Como ya sabíais, en estas aulas no se podía hablar otro idioma que no fuera el latín. El latín es el idioma que les unía. Posteriormente eso se ha diversificado y hoy en día lo que tenemos que hacer es un pequeño esfuerzo en intentar, sobre todo, comunicarnos, que la clave tanto no solo son los idiomas, evidentemente los idiomas es la herramienta, pero la importancia es la de la comunicación y la actitud por querer comunicarnos y entendernos y comprendernos, que somos culturas en muchos casos diferentes, nuestra propia España también lo muestra así, con sus idiomas y nuestra cultura, pero que realmente una universidad sin esa perspectiva internacional y de comprensión de lo que es la globalización y lo que es el mundo, pues no tendría sentido. Desde el punto de vista tanto del profesorado como lo de los estudiantes, como el personal de administración y servicios, que es un elemento clave para poder internacionalizar nuestras universidades, pues tenemos que estar allí. Bueno, como veis, aquí nos lo creemos y queremos trabajar en ello. Es verdad que desde el aspecto, en la parte política, ¿no?, de toda esta perspectiva, que es quien tiene que impulsar y el liderazgo para llevarlo a cabo, pues no solo requiere hacer un diagnóstico de la situación actual y bueno, el mundo en el que vivimos ahora, cambiante, que está evolucionando tan rápidamente, que con las nuevas incorporaciones tecnológicas como la inteligencia artificial y otros elementos, no sé dónde vamos a llegar, ya lo iremos viendo y trabajando, porque para eso estamos aquí, pero que no solo necesitamos de ese diagnóstico, sino que también necesitamos de recursos, ya lo sabéis. La Universidad Española pública, por lo menos me estoy refiriendo, la privada también tiene sus problemas, pero en el caso de la universidad pública, pues bueno, dependemos de los recursos que nos vienen, evidentemente, desde el Estado y bueno, tenemos que estar siempre solicitando, demandando y apoyando para llevar a cabo todas las acciones que realmente en nuestra cabeza están, pero que materializarlas necesitamos de ello. Somos capaces de diseñar políticas, realizar diagnósticos, establecer acciones, pero necesitamos los apoyos y recursos. Bueno, simplemente aquí, como aprovecho este foro en el que no solo estamos de manera presencial, sino que ya sabéis que queda grabado todo esto en nuestros sistemas informáticos, en algún momento alguien también desde la Administración lo puede oír y desde luego no será por parte del trabajo que realizamos en las universidades, que estáis realizando todos vosotros, sino que todo el apoyo y toda la fuerza que podamos conseguir entre todos es importante. Creo que todo lo que sea colaboración y todo lo que sea trabajar en pos de la colaboración unos con otros nos abre mucho la cabeza, nos abre muchas perspectivas. 3 días trabajando conjuntos, viendo lo que hacemos en cada universidad, cómo lo estamos llevando a cabo, qué problemas estamos acometiendo, qué retos se nos presentan delante, es muy importante. No solo lo que hemos estado escuchando, sino todo el trabajo que habéis hecho conjunto en las comidas, cafés. Me imagino que alguna salida habéis tenido estos 2 días y habéis conocido Salamanca, pero en todas esas conversaciones y el conocimiento que vamos teniendo unos de otros nos va a ayudar, yo creo, que a todos a prosperar y que el sistema universitario español pues, va a avanzar. Insisto, los centros de idiomas son uno de los pilares fundamentales para poder apoyarnos y poder llevar a cabo todo este proceso que queremos seguir. Yo animaros, tanto el vicerrector de posgrado como yo, en animaros en continuar en esta línea y bueno, apoyar en las siguientes reuniones que podamos tener. Tenéis la Universidad de Salamanca de vuestro lado. Muchas gracias a todos, buen viaje ahora de vuelta y tenéis aquí también vuestra casa. Gracias a todos. Queda clausurado el Congreso.